keep this all in mind. This is really high risk, but I do believe even when this calms down, if you love it, because you love sports and you put in work, this is something you can make money in that rivals real estate and Wall Street, that you're probably better at, that you're probably more educated at, that gives you, if you're a gambler, completely do this.
Thanks for tuning in again, everybody. We're back with your favorite podcast, Luka's Tigers and Bronze, oh my.
Luka Nation, we have a very special guest today, a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary is 5 times New York Times bestseller, serial entrepreneur, and an avid card collector. My favorite book, Gary, Thank You Economy, I think it applies today more than ever in what's going on with sports cards in terms of community, small business, and getting to know your neighbors. And if you guys haven't read it out there, I highly, highly recommend it. We're going to talk about sports cards, art, and entrepreneurship, and kind of the crossover today. But before we get into it, Gary, 2 years ago, you were on The Breakfast Club. It's kind of the preface to all of this, right? Sneaker flippers, people making money online, and DJ Envy put you on the spot. He's like, make this real for me, make this practical. Here we are 2 years later. Could you give a 2-3 minute State of the Union on sports cards and kind of what you see going forward with this hobby?
First of all, man, obviously we get to interact a lot on our Instagram DMs and things of that nature. And obviously, Goldberg, I had the pleasure of working very close with you and Cage, buying some nice stuff from you. And I'm really excited and I'm really proud of you guys for doing the show and hope it's going as well as it seems to be going. And I'm happy to be here and can't wait to share it to build a much bigger audience for you. So for everybody here who is listening to this show for the first time, I have a lot of heart for these men and I'm excited to be here. Look, I think, and you know this, Goldberg, better than anybody because you were right there when it was all kind of going down. Over the next 40 years of my life, it will become more obvious to people, like, I'm not a one-trick pony. This is not luck. I'm extremely good at understanding human behavior and people and trends. I put, as you know, and you got to see this when you got close to me, I put in a tremendous amount of work against my natural talent to be right about these things. And it was very obvious to me 3 years ago, communicated in the way you're bringing it up 2 years ago, that the sports card thing that I grew up loving in the mid 80s was going to have a cycle again. And I'd watched it kind of passively. Then it became much more serious. And 3 years ago, I spent about 6 months to a year really, really paying attention every downtime, every moment, which is not a lot in my life. And then, 3.5 years ago, I went to the National Sports Card Convention in Cleveland, really on the ground, really paid attention. And basically I saw what I needed to see. And when somebody asked me what, it's like, just 20 kids doing the same thing or some dealer saying, man, this is a lot busier than we expected it to be. Just little nuances. And then, please.
Let me ask you. So you talk about kids, and I want to bring Cage into this because probably the most beautiful thing about the hobby is bringing parents and kids together. Has Xander started collecting?
Yeah, I mean, Xander's the reason I even had the early indication. He himself was kind of starting to flirt and opening it up and leaving it around and the cards get banged up. But my biggest thesis was that people were going to reboot this the way that things are rebooted in toys. So I've had the luxury of working with Hasbro and Mattel in my time at VaynerMedia running that company. And one of the things I learned was every 25 years, IP reboots because parents relive their youth with their children. So Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, My Little Pony, Strawberry Shortcake, these franchises reboot. And that was absolutely one of the biggest pillars for me. I'm like, oh, right. I'm in the perfect age of the golden era of cards, 86 to 93. And a lot of guys and some women are having children now that are 6, 7, 8, just old enough to kind of get into it. This is one of the things. Gambling was another thing. Sneaker flippers were another thing. There was all these things happening which led to the observation. But to your point, I have received thousands of emails of people thanking me for bringing this to their awareness because it's been the connection point for them and their children. And it's been fantastic. And with, I think we live in a better era than I grew up in, where, boys do sports and girls don't, all that bullshit, like the molding. So a ton of this is, this is my connection point with my daughter.
Yeah.
And then there's also Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and stickers and soccer. And, there's all these other variables that have led to incredible happiness amongst families, which, to your point, Andrew, is absolutely one of the cool things about it.
I love it. My son wants to start his own card grading company. We just talked about this today. IAN, his name is Ian. He wants to start. It's Independent Authentication Network, he calls it. He's got like a magnifying glass. It's a fun.
And Cage, how old is he? How old is he?
He's 7.
Right. So like what excites me about that more than anything is the fact that he's even thinking that way.
Yep.
Right. Like when you see your 7-year-old even say that, it gets exciting, to think about what that means. Like the things that these kids are learning are so extraordinary.
Yeah. And they're all into it. I mean, listen, so my daughter drew our the artwork for our podcast. My son comes on and says the Nuggets are going to win this series. I mean, everybody's into it. It's a cool way of doing it. But it leads me to a question, Gary, because I remember seeing you in 2018 at a card show in Hofstra, and you were able to kind of freely move table to table without people really even knowing who you were, because that atmosphere was not yours. It was a curmudgeon. I don't want to use that word in a negative way, but card shows were a different sphere than they are now, a different landscape. And I think you've changed it. I really think you have. And, are you ever going to go to a national like you did the first one, where you kind of were, incognito almost, right? I mean, now you're a face in the sports cards.
No, not like anything else I've ever done, right? Like when I went in the wine business, I'm a kid, I worked in my dad's store the first couple, and what's fun about living in my shoes, and I think other people probably feel this when they just know their destiny or believe in their spirit. Like I loved the first 2-3 years of the Wine Spectator big wine event, because I knew those would be the only 2-3 years that I wasn't a guy. Because I believed in myself, and I knew that, and I love the humility of learning too. Like I love being the guy, and I love being the lowest guy on the totem pole. Advertising. When I got into advertising, I knew that nobody knew who I was. Maybe they heard about the wine guy, but like, it's not like when I go to Cannes now, when, as I walk down the strip, like at Cannes marketing event, it's a big event in France, like people are turning and they know who I am, and I know that they know. Same thing with those early card shows. Like, I said something, obviously everyone missed the one in August, but the year prior in Chicago, I was set up. I already had a little bit of juice going. It was very different than Cleveland the year before, but I remember telling somebody like, oh, you think this is a lot? Wait till next year's national. And obviously that one got skipped. And obviously the national that we all hope that we go to in August, where we'll all hug it out. I'm actually worried about that one, because I was pretty on, and it was hard to like enjoy with Xander and my friends at the last one. This next one, I'm going to be bombarded, because I'm aware of where I sit within it, but I also am grateful for that. I don't like cry about that. That's flattering and special. And then what you learn is you have to figure out your way of how to make it. The reason I don't share my family life is I'm pretty confident that when I go to the National in Chicago next year and I decide to go walk the show with Xander, at least 80% of the audience is going to recognize I'm with my little guy. They're going to let me be and enjoy. Some will be too excited, and that's flattering, and come up for a quick selfie. But, I'm looking forward to navigating that.
That'll be cool. Listen, Andrew's got a list of questions, so I'll just ask one more for you, right?
Please.
So, and then I'm gonna leave it to him, because he's the Cronkite. I'm the moron.
I got you.
But I
we're the Mad Mike show.
Yeah, Mike, exactly. It's I guess I'm the mad dog. Who knows? But in any event, here's the question on it, right? It's I think you get a lot of flack in the hobby also, and I think that's it's par for the course, right?
Sure.
And honestly, I think it's a little unfair. I think that there are people out there, people who are tied into our collectibles, our hobby, nostalgia, people, spending habits, the study of people and money, as you are with your business, who are just able to pick things out. Now, a guest we've had on twice, his name is Jeremy Padower, big into Pokemon, owns a toy company.
Yep.
Big fan of yours, by the way. Told me to tell you. He bought the last set of Pokemon, the first series, Wizards of the Coast, the first edition, and he paid like $129,000 for it or something like that. And he bought it, he publicized it, and now that set is probably $500,000.
Yep.
I don't hear people saying, Jeremy, you pump and dump the Pokemon stuff. I don't hear people saying to him, and you know what he had? He had an insight with some knowledge, some thought process. He worked on the Pokemon brand many years back, and he knew money was coming into that generation, you name it. Now, when you say, hey, Mookie Betts is a card I like, and here are his, the card goes up because that's just the natural progression. I mean, you put it out there, people follow you. That's the life you have presently. I don't think it's fair. Maybe you'll comment on it. I mean, how are you supposed to enjoy the hobby if when you have a pick and you want to share it with somebody, you almost can't? Because, if you can't win, right? If it goes down, people blame you.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is I know the truth, and everybody close enough to me to have the information knows the truth. Like, Lou and Tyler, who are close, you guys are close to me. Like, it's when somebody says fuck that guy, he pumps and dumps, it's fun for me because I know for fact I've not sold anything. I've literally sold stuff at the National, and which was like stuff that was laying around that I was mainly buying at the National. And then other than that, I haven't sold anything. Not a thing. Not a one. And so look, the reason I'm able to be happy and navigate my life is that I've come to realize there is negatives that come along with notoriety and being known. I accept that. What makes it easy is I know I have no ill intent. Right? So for example, I've been incredibly busy the last 6 weeks. Vayner Media, the Sasha Group, 1:37 p.m. in Pure Wow.
Vayner Sports.
Everything's busy. Everything's going really well.
The champ follows me on Twitter. I love it.
So things are going extremely well in my core business. So well that for the last 5 or 6 weeks, and you guys know this, I mean, I just posted something today because I'm at my parents' house and that's where I have my Charizard PSA 10. And I was like, okay, we're in a hot moment.
Sasha keeps it safe.
Yeah, he keeps it safe. So I think
no one's coming in.
No one. And so to me, that was fun to post a video. I literally just posted my first piece of content in a while around cards with the Zard PSA 10 Shadowless. And yo, what's good? Been getting so many DMs and emails and questions about, yo, Gary, basketball's cool and all, but you need to get on that Pokemon. And I just felt like making a video and just explaining we've been on. But over the last 6 weeks, I've been unable to really do much communicating or keeping up with the card market. And then, the holidays will come and I'll have some downtime and I'll probably go crazy and get really into it. I am not worried about it. I worry about it because you care about your reputation. It's not fun to be disliked or for people to think these horrible things of you that are just 100% untrue. But what I've come to learn a long time ago is ultimately the truth will win everything. And I'll do the right things. I'll be patient. I'll be here for the long term. I'll communicate about it when I'm into it, when I have time and I'm into it. I'll ebb and flow. I got a lot going on in my life. There'll be years where I'm super loud about it. There'll be weeks when I'm not. There'll be different things. By the way, the macro, the market itself, whether tomorrow or a year from now or 3 years from now or 5 years from now, will probably have some sort of lull by comparison. Even though I'm checked out in the scheme of me, I'm aware that, vintage has course corrected. Modern, I've always believed would course correct. Nothing about Luka or Greek Freak surprises me because off-season dynamics play out. But what is very clear, for example, in the last week, Logic, the rapper, buying a Zard for $260, The Rock talking about his Bumblebee rookie card. I keep trying to explain to people, this is super macro. This is gonna go up and a bunch of people have hit me up, Gary, I'm a little checked out, so I'm a little caught here. Gary, what the fuck? Things are going down. I'm like, And then like I took 5 seconds and looked to this one friend. I'm like, yes, they're down from August insanity. They're way up since April.
Yeah.
Like we're like, you know, these charts that people want, everyone paints the narrative they want. There's people that want to paint a narrative that it's collapsing and they show you 8 weeks. And I'm like, what about
stretch it out
months?
to 16 weeks? Yeah, I mean,
forget it.
right.
Exactly. So look, I think people have to ask themselves, you guys know this. I do think it's scary to day trade because I think it leads to things like you go all in on Dak and he breaks his ankle. You know, and what you don't have in that scenario is any seconds. Like the second that happens, you're in trouble.
Yep.
Like, you know, whether that's Tyler Hero, whether that's Fernando Tatis Jr., whether that's whoever that might be, if they're active, the other thing I try to remind people is, look, Ray Allen, Chris Bosh are remarkable players. Look at their card compared to their career. Yep. You're going to need Jaren Jackson Jr. You're going to need John Morant to be a top 15 player, top 50 player, top 100 player of all time for this to work out on supply and demand. Or you are a day trader and it's okay to buy something for $60 and sell for 90 because you enjoy that. And by the way, if you're not sitting on the level of wealth that I have, and this is your moneymaker, by the way, I would be the number one day trader when I was 17.
What would you day trade?
I would day trade active players because I didn't have enough money to sit the way I have now. To me now, sitting on a LeBron rookie like is something I can afford to do because I've worked really hard and smart for 25 years to put myself in that position. At 18, I didn't have that luxury. So like I would have went into this NBA or this NFL season. Like I have no clue. It's in the background right now. I'm watching it because I love football. Like Josh Allen's having a really good year, which pisses me off. Like I don't know where I have to assume his rookie cards are doing a hell of a lot better than they were in August.
Oh yeah.
If I was day trading, I'd be like a fantasy sports or a bettor. I would know everything about every young player that has upside, right? I'd be going crazy on that.
Gary, what about ancillary markets? Selling supplies, rip and wax. What do you think about those for moneymakers?
Massive. I mean, are you kidding me? Like what the gold rush taught us 100 years ago was sell the shovels and the picks.
And the pans.
I mean,
the supplies are the people who made their money, right?
I'll be honest with you. If you told me you were forced to start a business right now and we will promise you the next 5 years are going to be huge, I would start a top loader company. I would build the Louis Vuitton of cases.
It's funny you say that.
My penny sleeves would be 2 cents.
This is Andrew's idea, by the way.
It's my sister's, my college sister who's 21. She came to me. She said, let's start Rose Gold and sell supplies to people. But let me ask you, Gary, you're someone who has great pattern recognition. A question we have keep coming up, baseball, the future of baseball cards, right? So baseball cards started it all, but also MLB as a business doesn't market their players. Acuna, Tatis, Baez, Betts. These guys are unbelievable.
He's a Soto guy. Remember Soto. Otherwise, Gary gets mad.
Soto.
I like, honestly, on the record, Acuna, Soto, Acuna and Soto. I'm obsessed with Tatis, and I love him from a personality standpoint.
Right.
Yes.
But I think Soto and Acuna, barring injury, are locked and loaded.
But Gary, what about the fact that MLB doesn't market their players, so they can't even compete?
It's the reason I don't talk about baseball as much as basketball, proper football, aka soccer, and Pokemon. I don't think they're as good. I will say this, literally in my 6 weeks, and I won't disclose who, not because it really ultimately because I want to still keep buying them, and it's super high risk. I'll say this right now. The only thing I bought in the last month is Bowman Auto rookies of a baseball player who's the 7th to 13th best prospect on his team. So this is not a Baseball America top 100. This is me trying to replicate back to like emotions and happiness. Kenny Lofton was not supposed to be as good as he ended up being. I loved his game because he was in the Final Four of the 1988 NCAA tournament, and I remembered him, and I loved him. And so I just decided to buy all his rookie cards for 10 cents a piece. and he made me a lot of money at the time as a kid. Right now, baseball, back to your answer, is not the place I put my money because of the garbageness that Major League Baseball is when it comes to marketing players. However, baseball is the one place where you could buy Cody Bellinger 7 years ago for nothing. Bowman produces cards of so many kids so early that if you want to really go for it, like if you want to go for the I spent $1,800 and I made $100,000,
You hit the right prospect.
Baseball is the right sport. Now, you're going to need a miracle because none of the top 25 or even top 100 prospects are going to be that guy. It's going to be the 313th prospect that you're buying for, 50 cents to $1. You're buying the autos for 10, and he goes out and becomes Cody Bellinger, and you've PSA tanning the 4,000 cards you have. That's high risk. That's gambling, but it does make baseball fun.
I did the same thing, by the way, with a guy 3 years ago, and I'm still holding his cards. And I bought it. Just so happened I pulled one of his cards, out of 5 in a box I opened, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna start buying all this guy. And I just bought all the out of 5s.
What's interesting is I play such deep fantasy baseball. I actually think the guy I'm betting on has a real shot.
All right. Well, if he's the 7th to 13th prospect, I hope it's with the Rays. Because their 7th prospect is still like number 10 in the league.
Gary, let's talk about art. So
yes.
Cage has a take on this. I don't agree with it, but it's okay. So you know that Larry Bird, Julius Erving, Magic Johnson card?
Yes.
So let's say you have that in a PSA 9. Cage likes that card the way it is. I like that card autographed. On-card autos, does that ruin the art appeal? Does that ruin the scarcity? Why do people prefer autographs, especially of the players that are authenticated by PSA, less than the actual card without the autos?
I don't know. I think it's one of those classic, the hobby decided. I personally, even authenticated, also don't like it. I'm a little bit more with Cage on that, but I don't think we're right. I think it's preference. But I will say, for example, football cards are only good if they're the quarterback. That was like a hobby rule. And I think all the new flux of fantasy and gamblers are making the wideouts and running backs more interesting. If you told me in 7 years, autos authenticated properly on card got hot and started outpacing clean, that wouldn't surprise me. I subjectively like the card the way it is. For me, like Cage, you don't. And I don't think either is right or wrong. I do think there's something to think about the fact that later on in cards histories, the autos became official and pre-packed versus post. And there's something to that needs to be dissected. I haven't spent a whole lot of time of really going there within my own self, but I also think there's something to do with the fact that autos play out in other arenas, on balls, on jerseys. So there's something there as well. So far, I don't see an indication of like autos on card authenticated as authentic, but weren't part of the card. Barry Sanders score, rookies, Emmitt Smith score. They haven't built momentum.
So I like Luka Nation. What Gary said there, it's packed in a whole bunch of stuff, is the cycles. And I don't know whether you remember this or even were involved in cards in the 90s. It wasn't always quarterbacks. It's kind of evolved with the game. It's a quarterback game now. But in the mid-90s, when I was buying football cards, it was Emmitt Smith and Barry Sanders. And Marino was huge. But it was running backs.
It was running. I mean, 89-90 with Sanders score and 90 score supplement and Fleer update Emmitt, that was the jam.
Yep.
And even like defensive players like Reggie White's rookie was a real thing. And, I'm with you. It was all football players. I mean,
so who knows what it's going to be like when the cycle continues.
Football in general was kind of soft, like just around when when Topps got involved and like it started getting spiked a little bit. But like, I remember football's rise quite a bit because it was nowhere in 86, 87, 88, 89. 89 score gave it a little boost. And then 91, 92, even all that stuff ended up being garbage. Stadium Club Brett Favre, Gold, Pro Set was a major thing.
And the rookie classes. I mean, when Drew Bledsoe came out, he was a big name, and Marshall Faulk came out. Faulk was a huge name, running back. I mean, that was the deal, right? The SP stuff. That's crazy,
that was the golden night. I mean, that was the hysteria of 90 to 93. And by the way, this is a hysteria moment right now. Like Bowl will be something people talk about in 22 years when we reboot this thing all over again.
Yeah.
Remember Ian ran to your dollar box after
to
Bobo
find the
had the
Bol
monster
Bols. But he
game.
was also fun. He came running to me with Bol Bols in his hand and a stack of LeBron James base cards from Optic and Prism from boxes we opened. And he's like,
Sell 'em.
You mean these can sell now? I mean, it's funny. But Gary, so I mean, that's a great point, right? And the vast majority of people who are going to listen to this, they're new to the hobby. And believe it or not, they're probably new to the hobby because of you. All right. And I don't want to give you too much credit, but everybody who we talk to is a Gary nut. They're all your fans. We love you for coming on here. Thank you for your time. And I mean, really generous of you. We truly appreciate it. But I think the most valuable thing I can get for you is if you're talking directly to them, and I'm talking about the guys who just got into this hobby, the guys who don't have a bankroll, the guys who are doing this for fun, but you know what? They started investing. They started investing a little bit. You know, what would you say to them, especially given the fact that they're getting fed charts that are recent, you know? So talk to me.
There's no such thing as easy money. There's no get rich quick. If you're very knowledgeable in sports, you have a big advantage. That's real talk. Like, it should help you. Injuries are always in play. You could be super. I mean, Patrick Mahomes may never play again tomorrow. Like, Bo Jackson was as sure as it gets until he wasn't. So, like, you know, keep this all in mind. This is really high risk, but I do believe even when this calms down, if you love it, because you love sports and you put in work, this is something you can make money in that rivals real estate and Wall Street, that you're probably better at, that you're probably more educated at, that gives you, if you're a gambler, completely do this, because the gambling odds are super not interesting compared to, like, if you bet on this Tennessee Bills game, it's on the background, like, I promise you, if you believed in the Bills this year, Josh Allen rookie cards was a better bet than covering the spread on a fumble late. Like, so this is real. This is hugely opportunistic. It can be something you can really enjoy with your buddies, with your children. And I think this is a real thing for a while now. But you're going to have to realize you're going to take some wins and losses. But you might want to open up packs, because instead of going to Atlantic City and losing $2,000 guaranteed for the adrenaline rush, opening up a box of $800 Mosaic or Prism or, you know, is really awesome. And, you might pull a lotto ticket. And at least in this game, unlike a lotto ticket, you might pull a lotto ticket you didn't realize you pulled yet. I promise you this, when you put them nicely into a white box that holds the commons, I remember pulling out my Sammy Sosa rookie cards. I remember pulling out my 86 Topps Cecil Fielders when he came back from Japan and hit 10 homers in 5 minutes. And I was like, wait a minute, that's a 6-cent card that's now worth $4. Like, I remember those moments, and that's really fun with this. And there's a lot to unpack here, but you can win this game.
Love it. And I want to be respectful of your time. So last thing I want to ask you, and this is a little selfish for us.
Please.
What I think you do really well, Gary, is you're a storyteller through education and entertainment. So what's really amazing right now is what's not risky is creating content. And you're seeing so many people start educating. This is a little bit selfish, but for the community, what piece of advice do you have for content creators out there?
New platforms are always higher upside when they're organic reach. So I think you should be post-producing this content on TikTok and LinkedIn more than on Twitter and Instagram. It's always, you know. You got
a guy. I'm looking.
I mean, good news. The amount of people you just got listening to this podcast because I'm on it are probably going to find you a guy. So you should probably put out your email or post-produce this or figure it out. There's always places of arbitrage, just like there. By the way, with all the eyes right now on sports cards and everyone looking, there's something that 99% of the people don't see happening right now. Whether that's UFC, whether that's NASCAR, whether that's Marvel, whether that's some weird set, whether that's Garbage Pail Kids, whether that's a reboot of stickers. You know, I love those. Whether that's 80s sitcom cards, whether that's He-Man, because we don't even know right now that He-Man's about to make the biggest blockbuster of the summer in 2 years. Like, there's always something. And I think the same thing happens with content. Of course, pack breaking on YouTube, but what about Pinterest for the moms that have little boys buying cards? Like, you just never know. And so stay curious and create for as many places as you can.
Listen,
Paige, any final words?
No, well, I know he listens to every one of our shows. Otherwise, he wouldn't have hit us on Hero and Tatis. So he hit both of our guys in one sentence there. So I know he's listening. No, but listen, Gary. I mean, I told people who are coming on, and they're like, "How much is Gary charging you? You know how much he charges for a keynote speak?" And I'm like, "No, he's actually coming on because he loves the sports cards and he loves to chat about this stuff." And
we're friends. Like, I obviously know Goldberg super well, Cage. I know you really solidly well. Like when I first started getting into this, I love community. We started a little Instagram group of like the people early on, and as you guys know, I'm busy, so I'm not there all the time, but I see it. I interact when I can, and I have a lot of heart for you guys. You guys are two good dudes, and like I'm excited to be on the show. A, it's fun for me to talk about. B, I know what's going to happen with me being on, and I want to do that. That makes me happy, and I hope that this brings a lot of eyes and ears, and people listen to your prior episodes and your next episode, and I wish you guys nothing but health, and I can't wait to see you in person.
Thank you.
Gary.
Real quick. This show would not be possible without Dustin. So you guys know how busy Gary is. His team is equally as busy. And in the few minutes of time, during lunch, leaving late, Dustin would stay after and teach me how to edit a podcast. So this podcast would not happen if Dustin didn't stay and be really patient with me and teach me Premiere.
Listen, we've had almost 100 episodes in less than 3 months, and if it wasn't for being able to edit them, we've had none because I can't even turn my computer on. So thank you, Dustin.
Thank you, Dustin. Thank you, Andrew. Cage,
thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Man. Talk to you soon. Thank you for spending some time with us on another episode of the Luka's, Tigers, and Bronze Oh My podcast. Do us a favor and like, subscribe. You know what? Don't just like and subscribe. Everybody does that. If you like us, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, tell everybody. And we hope you got something from spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.